all that you behold. Though it appears without, it is within in your imagination, of which this world of mortality is but a shadow.
Wow.
Yeah. Think about that for a moment. William Blake dropping that bombshell. And it really sets the stage perfectly for what we're digging into today.
Absolutely.
Which is the potent, often overlooked power of your own imagination, seeing it as the fundamental creative force of the universe.
And we're doing this through the lens of Neville Goddard's teachings specifically.
Okay.
Now, for you listening, this might sound, well, completely new, maybe even a bit mind-bending, right?
For sure.
The idea that our imagination isn't just like daydreaming, but it's actively shaping reality, that can be tough to wrap your head around initially. But think of this as a chance maybe to explore a different perspective, one where your inner world, are in the driver's seat, not just reacting to stuff out there.
Right. Not just wishful thinking.
No, not at all. It's presented as a fundamental mechanism, a principle.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And our guide for this is a specific lecture Neville Goddard gave back in 1969, simply titled Imagination.
Yeah.
And what struck me about it and why we picked it is how direct he is. Very personal. It almost feels like he's talking right to you, which is what we try to do here.
Yeah, it definitely has that feel. So our mission today really is to unpack Goddard's, let's be honest, pretty radical claim.
It is radical.
This idea that human imagination, it isn't just a part of us. It's actually the same thing as God, as the creative power itself.
Yeah.
And we want to explore what that actually means for you, the listener, and, your ability to consciously shape your own experience.
Okay, so let's dive right into that core idea. Imagination is God. Now, Goddard doesn't just pull this out of thin air.
No, he builds a case.
He does. He points to the Bible, interprets specific passages.
Yeah.
Like Acts 17, Paul in Athens, the unknown God.
Right, where Paul says this God isn't far away because in him we live and move and have our being.
Exactly. And then Goddard connects that to William Blake's poetry, especially from Jerusalem.
Yeah. Ah, yes. Blake saying everything we see out there is actually in here, in our imagination, and this world, just a shadow of that inner reality.
It's a powerful link he makes.
It really is. And he layers it, doesn't he? He brings in Matthew and Mark too. With God, all things are possible.
And Mark 9.23, all things are possible to him who believes.
Exactly. For Goddard, that act of believing, that inner certainty, that is God in action. So the divine within us is our own wonderful human imagination.
And he absolutely knew. This would sound jarring to many, maybe even blasphemous.
Understandably, we're often taught God is separate, external, someone up there or out there.
Right. Goddard himself talked about that shift. He was raised traditionally Christian, and this realization kind of turned his world inside out. He even felt guilty thinking it at first.
That initial resistance makes sense. It challenges deep-seated beliefs, but Goddard pushes past that to the practical side.
What does it mean if it's true?
Right. If God, as imagination, is within you, then what becomes possible for you? Limitless potential, he argues, but it all hinges on your belief.
Your own belief.
Yes, it shifts the power entirely, from out there to in here.
Now, Goddard is super clear on this next bit. Just hearing this idea or memorizing it, that's not enough.
Not even close. Application is everything, he says quite forcefully. We are the operant power.
The operant power, meaning we're the ones doing it.
Yes, it's not passive. You have to actually use this power. Which brings us to that story he tells, the spacecraft to the moon vision.
Yes. Fascinating story.
It really illustrates the point. He has this vivid imaginative journey, right, to the moon. But remember, for Goddard, everything is symbolic.
Everything.
The moon generally. It often stands for ambition, right? Striving for things that seem distant, social status, money, maybe even world dominance, like he mentions with historical figures.
Okay, but the twist in his vision is he doesn't just land on it, he goes into it through a tunnel.
Right. And what's inside, it's dead, lifeless. And scattered around are these cheap clay trinkets, little cups and things.
Mass-produced stuff, like carnival prizes.
Exactly. Flimsy, commonplace things made on Earth just to be sold to tourists on this dead moon.
So the meaning behind that?
The meaning, as Goddard saw it, is that all those worldly ambitions we chase so hard, they're like those clay objects, transient, impermanent, they fade.
He used the example of someone making millions, then dying and leaving it all.
Right. He's careful, though. He says these desires aren't wrong in themselves, but seeing their temporary nature, that gives you perspective.
So the real lasting power isn't the stuff you acquire.
No. It's the imaginative power within you that could conceive of them in the first place. That's the enduring reality.
Okay, this flows right into another really crucial distinction he makes, building on Blake again. The idea of entering into the images in his imagination.
Yes, this is key. The difference between just thinking of something you want.
Like thinking about being rich.
Right, versus actually entering into that state in your imagination, thinking from it.
Okay, explain that to her.
He gives that great spatial example. Let's say you're physically in San Francisco, but you really want to be in New York.
Okay.
Don't just think about New York, the buildings, the streets. Instead, you have to vividly, completely imagine you are in New York right now.
Feel it.
Yes. Feel the atmosphere, hear the specific sounds, maybe smell the pretzels, whatever it is for you. Immerse yourself so fully that San Francisco starts to feel distant, like 3,000 miles away. Over there.
So you're shifting your sense of here.
Exactly. You're dwelling in the imagined state, making it feel real, even for a short while. And when you do that, Goddard says, you activate this bridge of incidents.
Bridge of incidents, what's that?
It's like a sequence of events, seemingly natural coincidences, conversations, opportunities that just unfolds to lead you to the physical reality of what you imagined.
Like setting the destination on a GPS.
Kind of, yeah. You lock in the inner reality, the feeling, and the route. The bridge starts to appear in the outer world. Subtly, usually.
And this isn't just for places, right? It applies to anything.
Anything. Finances, relationships, health, social standing.
Yeah.
Whatever. The core is that shift in consciousness, moving from thinking of the goal to thinking from the reality of already having achieved it.
Embodying the feeling now.
Precisely. It's not about forcing the how. It's about aligning with what the end result through your feeling imagination.
Which circles us back to that profound statement. The secret of imagining is the secret of God.
Goddard argues that by understanding and mastering your own imagination, you're literally uncovering the nature of God itself. You're tapping into, well, supreme power, wisdom, and delight, as he puts it.
So any insight into your own imagination
is an insight into God, because they're one and the same. There's no other God to find, in his view, outside of this creative power within you.
Wow. And he makes that really bold claim. You imagined yourself into this world.
And you'll imagine yourself out of it. It underscores just how fundamental imagination is to our entire existence, from beginning to end.
So the big question then, how do we actually do this practically?
Right. Goddard gives pretty direct advice. He says you have to test it. You deliberately enter an imagined scene using all your senses, make it feel absolutely real right here, right now.
Make elsewhere here, and then now.
Exactly. Collapse time and space within your own consciousness just for that imaginative moment.
Right.
And then, once you've done that, felt it real, you let it go, and you watch for that bridge of incidents to start forming, those subtle events guiding you.
He really encourages people to try it, doesn't he? Even if they're skeptical.
Oh, absolutely. He believed that even trying to disprove it would end up proving it through your own experience. Maybe not instantly, dramatically, but through that series of seemingly natural events that lead you there.
Okay, but what about doubt? That's a big hurdle for most people, I think.
Huge hurdle, yeah. How do you believe it when your senses, your reason, are telling you the opposite? Goddard is pretty strong on this. He basically calls doubt the devil, the negative force that blocks the creative flow of imagination.
So what do you do about it?
He says you have to make no room for it in your imagination. It's a conscious choice. Persistently return to the feeling of the wish fulfilled. Don't entertain the doubts, the fears, the what-ifs.
That takes discipline.
It does, consistent practice. But he suggests that understanding this principle also changes how you engage with the world generally.
How so?
Well, things like gossip, negativity, focusing on what's wrong, they start to seem less important, kind of pointless even. Your focus shifts inward to deliberate creation.
Makes sense. And it's not just about your reality, is it? He talks about using it for others.
Yes, absolutely. He highlights the potential to positively influence the lives of friends, family, anyone you care about.
By imagining good things for them.
Exactly. By consistently holding them in your imagination in their desired state, seeing them employed, healthy, happy, prosperous, whatever is appropriate, you contribute positively through your focused, loving imagination.
Holding that positive vision for them.
Now, he also briefly mentions something deeper, what he calls the promise.
Right, that's a whole other layer to his teaching.
It is. He describes it as this predetermined universal experience of spiritual awakening. Resurrection, discovering your true identity as God the Father encountering the Son.
It sounds quite mystical.
It is. But he explains that while this promise is fixed for everyone eventually, using the law, the conscious use of imagination can help us navigate life now. It can cushion the challenges of this world of Caesar, as he calls it.
Make the journey smoother, maybe?
Something like that. Ease, resilience, grace in facing life's inevitable difficulties.
Now, in the lecture, he took questions, which I think really helps clarify things.
Yeah, those Q&As are often gold mines.
Something asked about interpreting dreams and also about that mystical idea of like denying images to find God, emptying the mind completely.
Right. On dreams, Goddard acknowledged the universal symbolism but warned against rigid interpretation. It's complex.
But on denying images,
he pushed back on that being the only way. He saw how groups often claim exclusive paths to truth. Instead, he championed the power of individual imagination. For him, God often speaks most clearly through our conscious, productive fantasies, not just an empty void.
interesting contrast.
Very.
And what about helping others? Someone asked about the ethics, basically.
Yeah, a really important question. He affirmed, yes, you can and should help others by imagining the best for them.
But with a caveat.
Yes. It's not about trying to force their choices or change the fundamental nature of the world, the tree of good and evil, as he puts it metaphorically. It's about holding a positive state for them, not manipulating them.
Okay. This connects to another intriguing idea he mentions. The world being, in a sense, dead.
Not literally lifeless, obviously, but operate according to a kind of eternal underlying structure, like a script that's already written, in a way.
So things are just playing out.
In a sense, yes. But our awakened imagination gives us the ability to consciously interact with that structure, to choose which scenes or possibilities from that eternal structure we want to experience or bring forth.
So we're not just puppets.
Not if our imagination is awake and active. We become conscious participants, able to navigate and influence which aspects of that larger pattern manifest for us. Think of it like, maybe the film reel exists, but our imagination is the projector light, choosing what to illuminate and experience.
That's a helpful analogy. And finally, he kept coming back to the importance of feeling, didn't he?
Absolutely crucial. It's not just the mental picture, it's assuming the feeling of the wish fulfilled, living in that feeling until it feels completely natural, normal.
Even if you still have conscious doubts sometimes.
Yeah, he acknowledged that. Doubts and fears will still pop up, but consistent practice, returning to that feeling, builds trust in your imagination's power. Eventually, the feeling of the wish fulfilled becomes dominant.
Okay, so let's try and recap the really core takeaways from this deep dive into Goddard's imagination lecture.
All right. First, that really big one. Your imagination isn't just you thinking. It is God, the creative power of everything.
That's foundational. Second, the vital difference between just thinking of something
and actively thinking from it, embodying the feeling of already having it right now.
Third, the call to action. Actually test this. Don't just take his word for it. Try imagining vividly, feel it real, and then watch for that bridge of incidents.
Yeah, observe your own experience. And finally, realizing this power isn't just for you. It can positively impact others when you use it lovingly.
So that leaves us with a final thought, something for you, the listener, to really mull over. If your imagination truly is this fundamental creative power, what will you choose to imagine next? Not just as a passing thought, or a daydream, but as a deeply felt, consistently lived reality.
Yeah, that's the challenge, isn't it? And maybe consider how your whole idea of prayer might change. What if it's not asking an external power, but focused, imaginative dwelling, really living in the feeling of the wish already being fulfilled?
It really is an invitation, then, to explore this for yourself.
Completely. A journey of personal discovery and maybe, just maybe, consciously creating the life experience you truly desire.